The afternoon sun reflected off the sleek buildings of New Seoul's business district. Dr. Kim Jae-yun checked her vehicle's navigation system one more time. She was running late for an important meeting at the Spaceport Research Center. Her modified car hummed quietly as it moved through traffic, its special controls perfectly matched to her needs. Jae-yun had lost her legs 5 years ago, but that hadn't stopped her from becoming one of Earth's top scientists. Her car, like everything else in her life, had been adapted to work with her hover chair. She was proud of these modifications. She had designed many of them herself. Through her rearview mirror, she noticed the flash of blue and red lights. A police car was signaling her to pull over. Jae-yun sighed but stayed calm. She guided her vehicle to the side of the road, making sure to park in a well-lit area where other people could see them. The officer who stepped out of the police car wasn't human. His blue-tinted skin and slightly larger eyes marked him as a centauri. Jae-yun had worked with many aliens before, but something about this officer's walk told her he was new to Earth. Officer Hae-jin Park approached the vehicle, his hand resting on his translator device. He had only been on Earth for 3 months. The Human Resources Department had given him a Korean name to help him fit in better, but he was still learning about human customs. License and registration, Hae-jin said through his translator. His voice came out slightly mechanical. He looked at Jae-yun's car with suspicion, noting all the unusual modifications. Jae-yun reached for her documents slowly and carefully. "Of course, officer. May I ask why you pulled me over?" Hae-jin's large eyes narrowed at the vehicle's controls. "Your vehicle has unauthorized modifications. This is a violation of Earth Centauri Traffic Code 247. Jae-yun took a deep breath. She had dealt with this before, but usually with human officers who understood about disabilities. "Officer, these modifications are all legal and registered. I have my disability documentation right here." "Exit the vehicle," Hae-jin interrupted. His translator made the words sound harsh and cold. "Sir, I need to explain something." Jae-yun started, but Hae-jin cut her off again. "Exit the vehicle immediately," he repeated, his hand moving to his weapon. To him, any hesitation meant possible danger, just as he had learned in his Centauri police training. Jae-yun tried to stay professional. "Officer Park, I am a disabled person. I cannot exit the vehicle in the way you're expecting. I need my hover chair, and I need to show you my medical documentation." Hae-jin's translator crackled with static. The words "disabled" and "hover chair" didn't translate properly into Centauri concepts. To him, it sounded like excuses from someone using illegal technology. People began to gather on the sidewalk. Some took out their phones to record what was happening. Jae-yun could feel the situation getting worse. She reached slowly for her emergency medical ID, but Hae-jin saw the movement and tensed up. "Hands where I can see them," he shouted, his translator making the words echo strangely in the quiet street. Jae-yun raised her hands, her heart beating faster, but her mind staying clear. She was a scientist who had faced challenges before. She just needed to find a way to make this officer understand. The sun continued to shine off the buildings around them, and more people gathered to watch. Nobody knew it yet, but this traffic stop was about to become much more than just a simple misunderstanding between a human and an alien officer. The crowd on the sidewalk grew larger. Jae-yun could see at least 10 people holding up their phones, recording everything. She kept her hands visible on the steering wheel, just as Officer Hae-jin had ordered. "Officer, please check your translator," Jae-yun said slowly and clearly. "I think it's not working properly." She noticed the device on Hae-jin's collar was blinking red instead of its usual steady blue. Hae-jin touched his translator, but the static only got worse. To him, Jae-yun's words came through as jumbled sounds mixed with what his Centauri training told him were warning signals. His large eyes darted between Jae-yun's modified controls and her hands. "These vehicle modifications are illegal," Hae-jin insisted, his voice growing louder. "You will exit now, or I will be forced to remove you." In his home system, modified vehicles were often used by criminals to smuggle dangerous materials between planets. A young woman in the crowd stepped forward. "She can't just get out. Don't you see she needs her chair?" But He Jin's malfunctioning translator turned these words into threatening sounds, making him more nervous. Jai Yun pressed a small button under her dashboard. This sent an automatic alert to the Xenological Relations Department. She had installed this system after hearing about other misunderstandings between humans and alien officials. Now she was glad she had. "Officer Park." Jai Yun tried again, speaking as clearly as possible. "I am Dr. Kim Jai Yun of the Spaceport Research Center. Please look at my ID card. It has universal translation codes on it." He Jin took one step closer to the car, his hand still on his weapon. "Show me your ID slowly," he said. The mechanical voice of his translator made the words sound like a threat. Jai Yun reached for her ID with careful movements. The card had special markings that any alien could read, even without a translator. But before she could hand it to He Jin, another police car pulled up. Officer Lee Do-hyun stepped out of the second car. He was human and had worked with alien officers before. He quickly saw the problem. He Jin's translator was malfunctioning, and he didn't understand about human disabilities. "Officer Park." Do-hyun called out in the simple Centauri language he had learned during training. "Stop. Need check situation." His accent was bad, but He Jin understood enough to pause. The crowd had grown to nearly 30 people now. Some were shouting at He Jin, making him more confused and worried. Do-hyun knew he needed to control the situation before it got worse. "Everyone, please step back," Do-hyun announced to the crowd. "We are handling a technical problem." Then he turned to He Jin and spoke in basic Centauri again. "Human medical situation. Need wait for experts." Jai Yun watched as Do-hyun tried to explain things to He Jin. She could see the confusion and fear in the alien officer's eyes. On his world, showing any weakness or disability was considered shameful and was often hidden. The idea of someone openly living with a disability and having special equipment was completely foreign to him. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the street. In the distance, Jai Yun could hear the sound of more vehicles approaching. She hoped they were from the Xenological Relations Department. Her hands were getting tired from holding them up, but she didn't dare move them. One wrong movement now could make everything much worse. He Jin stood frozen, caught between his training and his growing sense that something here was very different from what he had first thought. The crowd's angry sounds and Do-hyun's broken Centauri words swirled around him, making it hard to think clearly. He didn't know what to do next, but he knew he couldn't back down. Not yet. Not until he understood what was really happening here. Officer He Jin Park's patience was running out. Despite Officer Lee Do-hyun's attempts to explain the situation in basic Centauri language, He Jin's training demanded that he take control of the situation. The crowd had grown even larger, and their angry voices made him increasingly nervous. "Last warning," He Jin announced through his broken translator. "Exit vehicle now." His hand tightened on his weapon as he moved closer to Jai Yun's car door. Jai Yun remained calm, though her arms were shaking from holding them up for so long. She could see Do-hyun trying to manage the crowd while also keeping an eye on his alien colleague. The situation was becoming more dangerous with each passing minute. "Officer Park," Jai Yun said firmly, "I am going to show you something very important. Please do not be alarmed." She slowly moved one hand toward the control panel of her hover chair. He Jin tensed, but Do-hyun quickly stepped forward. "Wait, colleague," Do-hyun said in Centauri. "Watch only. No action." Jai Yun pressed a button on her chair's control panel. A holographic display appeared, showing her medical history and official disability documentation. The images floated in the air, clearly visible through the car's window. But He Jin's cultural training had never prepared him for this. On his world, the use of personal holograms was restricted to government officials. To him, this display looked like a threat. He pulled out his weapon and pointed it at Jae-yun's car. The crowd gasped. Several people screamed. Do-hyun immediately reached for his own communicator, calling for emergency backup. All units, potential crisis situation at 5th and Main. Need immediate xenological response team. Jae-yun's heart was racing, but her scientific mind stayed focused. She had worked with alien species for years. She knew that fear often came from lack of understanding. "Officer Park," she said calmly, even with the weapon pointed at her, "your translator is malfunctioning. The lights on your device are red. This means it is not working correctly. Please check your equipment." Hae-jin glanced down at his translator. For the first time, he noticed the red warning light. In his anxiety over the modified vehicle and the growing crowd, he had ignored this important detail, but his training still told him to maintain control of the situation. "Weapon down. Stand back." A new voice boomed across the street. A sleek black vehicle had arrived, its sides marked with the symbol of the Xenological Relations Department. Director Yoon Soo-bin stepped out, wearing the official uniform that both humans and Centauri would recognize. Hae-jin found himself caught between his police training and the arrival of a superior official. His weapon remained pointed at Jae-yun's car, but his hands had started to shake. The crowd had gone quiet, watching to see what would happen next. Director Yoon approached slowly, speaking in perfect Centauri. "Officer Park, you are experiencing a serious cultural misunderstanding. Your translator has malfunctioned. This situation requires immediate diplomatic intervention." Jae-yun watched as confusion spread across Hae-jin's face. She could see him struggling with the conflict between his training and this new information. Behind him, more official vehicles were arriving, their lights flashing in the growing darkness. The next few moments would be crucial. One wrong move from anyone could turn this tense situation into a diplomatic crisis. Jae-yun knew she had to stay perfectly still and let the professionals handle it. But she also knew that this confrontation could become an opportunity for something much more important than a simple traffic stop. Director Yoon Soo-bin stepped closer to Officer Hae-jin Park, speaking calmly in Centauri language. "Officer, the woman in this vehicle is Dr. Kim Jae-yun. She is one of Earth's most important scientists. Lower your weapon, and I will explain everything." Hae-jin's hands trembled as he held his weapon. His training told him to maintain control, but Director Yoon's words carried the authority he had been taught to respect. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. At that moment, Ambassador Kang Maire's vehicle arrived at the scene. The crowd parted as she stepped out, her diplomatic uniform gleaming in the evening light. She walked directly to Jae-yun's car window. "Dr. Kim," Ambassador Kang said formally, "I apologize for this incident. May I have your permission to show Officer Park your credentials?" Jae-yun nodded. "Yes, Ambassador. I think it's time." She pressed another button on her control panel. The holographic display changed, showing something that made the crowd gasp. The image showed Jae-yun in her laboratory, working with advanced alien technology. More images appeared, Jae-yun receiving awards, speaking at international conferences, and most importantly, demonstrating her neural integration program. The program that had changed how humans and aliens communicated with machines. Hae-jin stared at the images. His translator might not be working, but these pictures told a clear story. He recognized the technology. Every Centauri police officer used neural interfaces based on this human's work. Director Yoon handed Hae-jin a working translator. Through it, he finally heard Jae-yun's clear voice. "Officer Park, 5 years ago, I lost my legs in an accident while developing the neural integration program. Instead of giving up, I used that experience to make the program better. The modifications on my vehicle aren't illegal. They're prototypes of the same technology you use in your police equipment." The crowd had fallen completely silent. Many were recording this moment on their phones, capturing the exact second when understanding dawned on Hae-jin's face. Officer Lee Do-hyun stepped forward. "The doctor's work helps both humans and aliens live better lives." Her hover chair technology is now used in hospitals across 3-star systems. He-Jin's large eyes widened as he finally understood. On his world, people with disabilities were hidden away. But here it was a human who had turned her disability into something that helped everyone. His hands dropped to his sides, and his weapon returned to its holster. Ambassador Kang addressed the crowd. What you are witnessing is more than a traffic stop. This is a moment of cultural exchange. Dr. Kim's work bridges the gap between humans and aliens, between the disabled and the able-bodied. Her technology helps us understand each other better. Jia-Yun's holographic display now showed her latest project, a new type of universal translator that could understand not just words, but cultural context, the very thing that could have prevented this entire situation. He-Jin took a step back from the car, then did something unexpected. He performed the centauri gesture of deepest apology, a motion that involved kneeling and touching his forehead to the ground. In his culture, this was reserved for moments of profound regret and respect. The crowd murmured in surprise. Many of them recognized the gesture from their studies of alien cultures. What had started as a frightening confrontation was becoming something very different, a moment of transformation that would soon change law enforcement across the galaxy. Director Yoon Soo-bin watched as Officer He-Jin Park remained in the traditional centauri position of apology. The crowd had grown silent, understanding the significance of this moment. After a full minute, Jia-Yun spoke through the working translator Director Yoon had provided. "Please rise, Officer Park," Jia-Yun said gently. "Your willingness to learn and understand is more valuable than any apology." He-Jin stood slowly, his blue-tinted skin showing darker marks of emotion. Ambassador Kang Mi-rae stepped forward, addressing both the officer and the gathered crowd. "Today we have witnessed something remarkable," the ambassador announced. "What began as a misunderstanding has become an opportunity for growth. Dr. Kim's work has always been about bringing different worlds together. Now we can use this experience to make our law enforcement systems better." Director Yoon nodded in agreement. He turned to Officer Lee Do-hyun, who had helped manage the situation. "Officer Lee, your understanding of centauri language helped prevent this situation from becoming worse. Would you be willing to assist in developing new training protocols?" Do-hyun straightened his uniform. "Yes, Director. I believe every officer, human or alien, should learn to recognize and respect different abilities and cultures." Jia-Yun pressed another control in her vehicle. The door opened smoothly, and her hover chair activated its full functions. The crowd watched in amazement as the chair's advanced systems lifted her from the car, displaying the elegant technology she had developed. "Officer Park," Jia-Yun said, now facing him directly, "would you like to learn how this technology works? Understanding it might help other officers avoid similar misunderstandings in the future." He-Jin's translator now worked perfectly as he responded. "Dr. Kim, I would be honored. On my world, we hide those who are different. But I see now that this is a mistake. Your achievements prove this." Ambassador Kang saw an opportunity. She addressed the gathered crowd, many still recording with their phones. "The Centauri Coalition and Earth's government will use this incident to create new protocols. Dr. Kim's neural integration program will become part of standard police training. Officers will learn not just about different species, but about different abilities." Director Yoon added, "This program will ensure that all law enforcement officers, regardless of their planet of origin, understand and respect the diversity of life in our shared galaxy." The evening had grown darker, but the street remained bright with hope. News vehicles had arrived, broadcasting the scene across Earth and to allied planets. What had started as a frightening confrontation was transforming into a moment of positive change. Jia-Yun moved her hover chair closer to He-Jin. "Officer Park, would you like to be part of this change? Your experience today could help others learn and grow." He-Jin looked at Jia-Yun's hover chair, seeing it now not as a suspicious modification, but as a triumph of innovation and human spirit. "Dr. Kim, I would be honored to learn from you. My mistake today must become a lesson for others." The crowd began to applaud, understanding they had witnessed not just the resolution of a conflict, but the birth of something new. Director Yoon and Ambassador Kang exchanged satisfied looks. Sometimes, the best diplomatic achievements came from unexpected moments of crisis. In the clean white meeting room of the Spaceport Research Center, Dr. Kim Jae-yun sat across from Officer Hae-jin Park. A week had passed since their confrontation on the street. Now, they were about to share an experience that would change both of them. "The neural integration program will let you see my memories," Jae-yun explained, adjusting the small sensor on her temple. "You will understand what happened when I lost my legs and how it led to creating this technology." Hae-jin looked nervous, but determined. The small sensor on his own blue-tinted temple glowed softly. "I am ready, Dr. Kim. I want to understand." Director Yoon Soo-bin monitored the equipment from a nearby console. Officer Lee Do-hyun stood by as a witness. Ambassador Kang Mei-rae watched from behind an observation window, knowing this moment could change intergalactic relations forever. Jae-yun pressed a button on her hover chair. The room's lights dimmed, and both sensors activated. Hae-jin gasped as the first memory began. He saw the laboratory accident through Jae-yun's eyes. The experimental neural interface had overloaded, causing an explosion. He felt her pain, her fear, and then her determination during the long recovery. But most importantly, he felt her refusal to give up. This was the moment. Jae-yun's voice guided him through the memory. "When I realized my disability could help me understand how different species think and move. Every alien race has different abilities. Some have wings, some have multiple limbs, some can breathe underwater. Why should having no legs be seen as less valid?" The memory shifted to her first successful hover chair design. Hae-jin watched as she tested early versions of the neural integration program, working with both humans and aliens. He saw her fall many times, but always get back up. "Your technology," Hae-jin said softly, "it comes from understanding pain and difference. On my world, we were taught that weakness should be hidden. But this is not weakness at all." The memories continued, showing Jae-yun's work with disabled individuals from various species. Each success and failure had helped her improve the technology. The same technology that now helped power starships, medical equipment, and even Centauri police gear. When the neural link ended, Hae-jin's eyes were wet with tears, a rare sight for a Centauri. "Dr. Kim, I understand now. Your different ability made you see solutions that others could not. Our shame about disability has held us back." Jae-yun smiled. "Officer Park, every difference is an opportunity to learn. Your willingness to see through my eyes today proves this. Now, would you help me show others?" Hae-jin stood and performed the Centauri gesture of deepest respect, not from shame this time, but from true understanding. "I would be honored. My people need to learn this lesson. All people do." Director Yoon checked the neural readings on his screen. The link was perfect. "We can use this recording to help train other officers. Both human and alien police need to understand that different doesn't mean wrong." As the room's lights returned to normal, Ambassador Kang entered from the observation area. "This is exactly what we needed. Personal experience breaks down prejudice better than any lecture or manual." The sun was setting outside the Spaceport Research Center, painting the sky in beautiful colors. Inside, a new understanding had bloomed between two very different individuals from two very different worlds. This understanding would soon spread across the galaxy, changing how people viewed disability and difference forever. 3 months after the traffic stop incident, the new Seoul Police Academy looked very different. The main training room now featured Dr. Kim Jae-yun's latest virtual reality system. Today, a group of 20 officers, both human and alien, gathered for their first training session. Officer Hae-jin Park stood at the front of the room beside Jae-yun. His uniform now carried a special badge marking him as a cultural understanding instructor. Officer Lee Do-hyun sat at the control panel, ready to start the simulation. Welcome to the new Intergalactic Disability Awareness Program, Jia-Yun announced to the class. Her hover chair moved smoothly as she demonstrated the virtual reality equipment. Today, you will experience life through different bodies and abilities. The officers put on their neural sensors. He-Jin shared his own story first. 3 months ago, I made a serious mistake. I let my prejudices about disability cloud my judgment. Today, you will learn from that mistake. The simulation began. Each officer experienced what it felt like to live with different abilities. Some felt what it was like to have no legs, like Jia-Yun. Others experienced the challenges of different alien body structures. The neural sensors made the experience feel completely real. Remember, Jia-Yun guided them. Every person you meet, human or alien, has their own way of moving through the world. Different does not mean wrong or illegal. In another part of the building, Director Yoon Soo-bin met with police chiefs from 5 different planets. They watched the training through observation windows. The results are impressive, one alien chief said through a translator. Officers who complete this training show much better understanding of different abilities and cultures. Ambassador Kang Mei-Ray nodded in agreement. Dr. Kim's program is now required training for all intergalactic law enforcement. The Centauri Coalition has been especially supportive, thanks to Officer Park's influence. Back in the training room, the officers removed their neural sensors. Many had tears in their eyes, just as He-Jin had after his first experience. One Centauri officer stood up shakily. "I never understood," she said. "On our world, we hide those who are different. But experiencing life through another's body shows us how wrong we have been." Jia-Yun moved her hover chair to the center of the room. This program is not about guilt or shame. It is about understanding and growth. Every officer who learns these lessons helps build a better galaxy for everyone. He-Jin touched the special badge on his uniform. "When I first came to Earth, I thought I knew everything about being a good police officer. Now I understand that good policing means seeing and respecting all kinds of people." The success of the training program spread quickly. Police departments across Earth and other planets requested the system. Jia-Yun and He-Jin traveled together to help set up new training centers, sharing their story and teaching others. News reports showed dramatic improvements in how officers handled situations involving people with disabilities and those from different cultures. What had started as a tense traffic stop was changing law enforcement throughout the galaxy. "This is just the beginning," Jia-Yun told He-Jin as they watched another successful training session end. "Every mind we open, every perspective we change, builds another bridge between worlds." He-Jin smiled, his blue skin glowing with pride. "And every bridge we build makes the galaxy a safer place for everyone, no matter their abilities or origins." 1 year after the traffic stop incident, the Grand Hall of the Intergalactic Conference Center buzzed with excitement. Representatives from 50 different planets filled the enormous room. At the center stage, Dr. Kim Jia-Yun's hover chair glided smoothly as she prepared to give her keynote speech. Officer He-Jin Park stood proudly beside her, wearing his cultural understanding instructor uniform with its now famous special badge. In the audience, Director Yoon Soo-bin and Ambassador Kang Mei-Ray sat with Officer Lee Do-hyun, who had recently been promoted to Chief of Intergalactic Relations. "Distinguished guests," Jia-Yun began, her voice clear and strong. 1 year ago, a simple traffic stop changed the course of law enforcement across our galaxy. Today, I am pleased to present the results of our Intergalactic Disability Awareness Program. The large screen behind her displayed impressive numbers. Over 10,000 officers had completed the training. Complaints about cultural misunderstandings had dropped by 70%. Relations between humans and aliens had improved significantly. He-Jin stepped forward to share his part of the story. His blue skin had darkened slightly with age, showing the wisdom marks valued in Centauri culture. "I came to Earth thinking I knew everything about being a police officer. Dr. Kim taught me that true strength comes from understanding and respecting differences." The audience listened intently as Jai-yun demonstrated the latest version of her neural integration program. The technology had evolved far beyond its original design. Now it helped people understand not just physical disabilities, but different ways of thinking and experiencing the world. Our program has expanded beyond law enforcement, Jai-yun explained. Schools, hospitals, and government offices across the galaxy now use this training. We are building a future where no one faces discrimination because of their abilities or origins. Ambassador Kang took the stage next. The Centauri Coalition has made this training mandatory for all public servants. Other planetary systems are following their example. What began as a moment of misunderstanding has become a movement for change. From his seat in the audience, Director Yoon watched with satisfaction. The incident that had once threatened to cause a diplomatic crisis had instead strengthened bonds between worlds. His department now received requests every day from planets wanting to implement the program. Jai-yun activated her hover chair's holographic display one last time. The audience gasped as the air filled with images from training sessions across the galaxy. Officers of every species learning to see through others' eyes. Lives changed. Understanding grown. The future we dreamed of is becoming real, Jai-yun concluded. A future where different abilities are celebrated, not hidden. Where understanding replaces fear. Where every person, regardless of their form or function, is treated with respect. Jin stepped forward again, performing the Centauri gesture of respect that had become a symbol of their program. To everyone's surprise, representatives from all 50 planets stood and repeated the gesture. The room filled with the sounds of different species showing respect in their own unique ways. As the applause echoed through the grand hall, Jai-yun and Jin exchanged proud smiles. Their story had started with fear and misunderstanding, but had grown into something beautiful. It would continue to grow, touching lives across the stars, building bridges between worlds, one mind at a time. The legacy of that tense traffic stop would live on, teaching future generations that understanding differences makes everyone stronger. In the end, it wasn't just about changing laws or procedures. It was about changing hearts and minds, creating a galaxy where everyone could thrive, exactly as they were.